Hello and welcome back to my channel. We are continuing with the Celts. We are on the Tène, that part of the development, I guess, of the cultural ways of the Celts. Tène is in West Switzerland, and it's claimed this is where the new major cultural development of the Celts happened. It is said that it is here where the most archaeological evidence of the new Celtic era is found. Tène marked a significant cultural period, not so much a political change, but there's plenty of proof that it was observation as well rather than just political and books and things. The style of art became more decorative, and it's said in the book of the Celts. If you can find that book, it's interesting. It's the best representation of the art of the Celts. The engineering of the Celts seemed to have been refined in this era too. The metallurgy in their weapons were said to be at the very best in all of Europe. They developed chainmail and seamless steel rim wheels in their chariots. Also, they came up with their own alcohol known as mead. Up until this point, the Celts had largely imported wine from the Etruscans. The Tène period is dated around 350 BC. Politically and socially, the Celts had evolved from the chiefdom-style societies to a warrior-based society. When we start to read great legends, like Tambo of Ireland, we get an idea of how it sort of worked. Leaders, for example, were no longer naturally brought to the throne based on royal lineage. They were now elected. In order to win that election, you had to prove yourself as a great warrior. Also, it did not mean that you were elected in for life. You held office only as long as you could continue to prove yourself as a great warrior, which is interesting. The moment you could no longer sustain yourself as a fearless and wise leader, you were voted out of office, and that was the case with the Vortigans of Britain c. 460 AD, or as was often the case in the Druids. They had ceremonially executed this to a perfection. Evidence of this can be found in various museums in Denmark and Great Britain. Apparently one of the first written records of the social change that came from the Tène era was by a Roman writer. Polybius c. 200 BC. He writes there was a massive population explosion amongst the Celts in central Gaul. A Celtic leader by the name of Ambigatus took with him about 5 major Celtic nations and migrated into what is now Hungary. The size of the nation was said to be well over 400,000. From here, one of his nephews took a portion of that group and migrated into the Italian Alps, Milan, as we know. This is said to all taken place around 300 BC. And according to yet another Roman writer, goes by the name of Trogus, there was another major migration from central Gaul, and with a population of 300,000, they too settled in Hungary. So suddenly, you have this huge population of cults just at the doorstep of the Greeks. Like any emerging nation, they started to draw notice by others, and for the first time, the Celts were being carefully examined. At this time, a Greek historian, he goes by, I think it's, please don't quote me, I'm trying to remember the name. I know the last name is Sokulus, but I think it's Diodorus Sokulus, wrote about the Celts, their appearance and their behaviour. And as mentioned, the Celts evolved from a chieftain-like society and then went into a more sort of distinct warrior-based society. But they're described clean-shaven, except for their enormous moustaches. Their clothing was brightly checkered and striped, and with their now trademark identity of torques around their necks. Also, they were beautifully designed brooches, often made from gold, silver or iron. They were very proud of their physical appearance. Both men and women are said to be tall and very muscular. A lot of the time, appearing nude was not uncommon, especially in battle. For the most part in the battle, they had their blonde hair washed in lime and shaped into long spikes to have a more fearsome appearance. In their personal nature, they were described as boastful people, singing bards, quick to merry, making with lots of drink. Feasting was a favourite pastime. However, in these feasts, fightings broke out, often with some quite fatal results. The first Celtic hill fort is said to have been built near Stuttgart, Germany. It was named, I think it's Wenneberg something, hill fort, and was dated, don't quote me on that, I'm trying to remember that from memory, and was dated 530 BC. Up until now, the Celts did have fortifications built that were generally viewed as more reinforced towns and villages. Again, we have to remember, the Celts were by and large nomadic in nature, so they were nomadic in nature no matter where they put themselves or anything like that. We still go back to the very base of the nomadic people. So when you actually start to examine the Celtic homes, you see that they were very temporary structures. However, in the Hohenberg Hill Fort, we have another sign of changing nature of the Celtic society. This fort was found the remains of metal smith operation, which is interesting, isn't it? A variety of metal was actually discovered, and it was deemed that the Celts were now mastering their metallurgy skills. It came to be realised later by the Romans, especially their military, that Celtic swords were made of a higher degree of craftsmanship than their own. When we go to Britain, there are some sort of confusing dates here and there and confusion on the subjects of forts, considering it's been well established that the famous Maiden Fortress in southern England was built around 1000 BC. However, once again, it has to be remembered, these forts, and many like it, across the United Kingdom, were built by their predecessors, the Unfield people. Urnfield people. Depends where you go to how that's pronounced. I would pronounce it Urnfield people. The Celts simply occupied them and did some new alterations to them. The Celts, as time went on, did start to build their own style though, their own style of forts, and Celtic forts like jewellery and political structures had a profound change from the Hallstatt period to the Latène period. It's believed that the Urnfield people were the influential force at this point. Prior to 400 BC, Celtic forts were rectangular in shape, and after they started taking a more oval design, after Latène got involved. More of this we'll discuss as we later go in when we're addressing to the Celts as they were as a society. I'm going to leave this one here because I don't like them being too long. I think it's important to take in information bit by bit. I think we learn better that way. But when we come back, we shall discuss Celtic forts. Thank you for listening and many blessings.